Lucy Stevens was born into a world of privilege and expectations. The only child of real estate mogul, Lucy's childhood was a carefully curated parade of private schools, equestrian lessons, and debutante balls. From an early age, she learned the importance of maintaining a flawless public image, a lesson that would shape her entire life. Despite the outward appearance of a charmed existence, Lucy's home life was far from idyllic. Theodore's demanding nature and Evelyn's constant scrutiny left little room for genuine emotional connection. Lucy found solace in academic pursuits, excelling in her studies, and developing a particular passion for art history. Her drive in intelligence earned her a place at an Ivy League university, where she flourished academically, but struggled socially. The pressure to maintain her family's reputation while trying to forge her own identity led to a series of tumultuous relationships and a growing sense of disconnection from her true self. Yet beneath her polished exterior, Lucy grappled with deep-seated insecurities and a constant need for validation. Her relationships with men were often intense but short-lived, as she found herself drawn to those who could provide the excitement and attention she craved, rather than the stability she claimed to want. It was during this time that Lucy met Finn Calloway, attracted by his quiet confidence in genuine nature. She saw in him the potential for the kind of life she had always been told she should want. As their relationship progressed, Lucy convinced herself that Finn was the answer to all her inner turmoil, the key to finally becoming the person she was meant to be. For old habits die hard, and as the wedding day approached, Lucy found herself grappling with doubts and a growing sense of restlessness. The facade she had so carefully constructed was beginning to crack, revealing the complex and conflicted woman beneath. Finn Calloway's upbringing stood in stark contrast to Lucy's world of privilege. The son of a small-town doctor and a high school English teacher, Finn grew up in a close-knit community where values like hard work, honesty, and loyalty were prized above material success. From a young age, Finn displayed a natural aptitude for science and a curiosity about the world around him. His parents nurtured this interest, encouraging him to explore and question everything. Summer vacations were spent on camping trips and visits to science museums, fostering Finn's growing passion for environmental conservation. Despite his academic prowess, Finn remained grounded and well-liked by his peers. He was the kind of person who would tutor struggling classmates or volunteer at the local animal shelter without seeking recognition. This genuine kindness and integrity would become hallmarks of his character throughout his life. Finn's dedication to his studies earned him a scholarship to a prestigious university, where he pursued a degree in environmental science. It was during this time that he first met his cousin, Asha Calloway. Despite their different backgrounds, Asha came from the wealthier side of the family. The two formed a close bond, with Finn often serving as a stabilizing influence on his more impulsive cousin. After graduation, Finn's passion for conservation led him to join a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting endangered species. His work took him to remote corners of the world, where he witnessed both the beauty of nature and the devastating impact of human activity on fragile ecosystems. These experiences only strengthened his resolve to make a difference. It was at a fundraising event for his organization that Finn first encountered Lucy Stevens. He was immediately struck by her beauty and intelligence, but it was her hidden vulnerability that truly captured his heart. Finn saw in Lucy someone who needed the kind of love and stability he knew he could provide. As their relationship deepened, Finn believed he had found his perfect partner, someone who shared his values and could challenge him intellectually. He envisioned a future filled with shared adventures and a common purpose. The proposal came naturally, and Finn threw himself into planning a life together with the woman he loved. Little did Finn know that the foundation of trust he so valued was about to be shaken to its core, testing his beliefs and the very essence of who he was. Asha Calloway was the black sheep of The family, a role he seemed to relish rather than resent. Born into the wealthy branch of the Calloway clan, Asher grew up with all the advantages money could buy, but none of the emotional stability he truly needed. His father, a high-powered corporate lawyer, was rarely present, and his mother sought solace in social events and prescription medications. Left to his own devices, Asher developed a rebellious streak early on, using his charm and good looks to manipulate those around him and get away with increasingly risky behavior. Despite his troubled home life, Asher possessed a keen intelligence and a natural charisma that drew people to him. He excelled in school when he applied himself, but more often than not, he could be found leading his peers into mischief. It was during one of these misadventures that he first bonded with his cousin Finn, who had come to visit during a summer break. Finn's steady presence and genuine concern for Asher's well-being made a deep impression. For perhaps the first time, Asher felt truly seen and valued for who he was, not just for his family name or his ability to entertain. This connection with Finn became a lifeline for Asher, one of the few stable relationships in his turbulent life. As they grew older, Asher's path diverged sharply from Finn's, while Finn pursued his passion for environmental science. Asher drifted between college majors, never quite finding his purpose. He eventually settled into a job at a startup tech company, more for the lifestyle it afforded than any real interest in the work. Asher's personal life was equally chaotic. A string of failed relationships left him cynical about love. Yet he continued to seek validation through conquest. He developed a reputation as a charming rogue, leaving a trail of broken hearts in his wake. When Finn introduced Asher to Lucy, something shifted in Asher's world. Here was a woman who seemed to match him in wit and complexity, who understood the pressures of coming from a prominent family. What started his harmless flirtation soon developed into a dangerous attraction, one that Asher knew he should resist, but found himself powerless against. As the wedding day approached, Asher found himself torn between his loyalty to Finn and his growing feelings for Lucy. The internal conflict brought out the worst in him, leading to increasingly erratic behavior and a sense of desperation that would ultimately contribute to the tragic events to come. The engagement of Finn Calloway and Lucy Stevens was the social event of the season. Finn had proposed on a moonlit beach during a conservation trip to Costa Rica, presenting Lucy with an ethically sourced diamond ring that symbolized both his love and his values. Lucy swept up in the romance of the moment, and the promise of a stable future had said yes without hesitation. News of their engagement spread quickly through their social circles. The Stevens were thrilled that their daughter had finally chosen a suitable partner, even if they found Finn's dedication to non-profit work somewhat quaint. The Calloways welcomed Lucy with open arms, charmed by her sophistication and apparent devotion to Finn. As the couple began to plan their wedding, the first cracks in their relationship started to appear. Lucy, influenced by her mother, in years of societal expectations, pushed for a lavish affair that would be the talk of the town. Finn, true to his modest upbringing and environmental conscience, argued for a smaller, more intimate celebration. Their compromises often felt one-sided, with Finn reluctantly agreeing to a larger guest list and more extravagant venue than he was comfortable with. He justified these concessions as acts of love, wanting Lucy to have the day of her dreams. Lucy in turn felt a growing sense of resentment, interpreting Finn's reluctance as a lack of enthusiasm for their union. As the wedding date drew nearer, the stress of planning took its toll on the couple. Lucy became increasingly short-tempered, snapping at Finn over small details like the shade of the table linens or the selection of wines. Finn, in an attempt to keep the peace, retreated into his work, spending long hours at the office and leaving much of the decision-making to Lucy. It was during this tumultuous time that Asher began to play a larger role in their lives. always ready with a joke to lighten the mood or a shoulder to cry on. He became a confidant for both Finn and Lucy. Finn, grateful for his cousin's support, failed to notice the lingering glances between Asha and Lucy, or the way their hands would brush against each other just a moment too long. Lucy found herself looking forward to Asha's visits, relishing the excitement and unpredictability he brought into her increasingly regimented life. She told herself that her growing attraction to Asha was simply a result of pre-wedding jitters, a natural response to the stress of planning such a momentous event. As the day of the wedding approached, the tension between Finn and Lucy reached a fever pitch. A heated argument over the seating arrangements left Lucy in tears, and Finn storming out of the apartment. It was Asha who came to comfort Lucy, bringing with him a bottle of expensive champagne and a sympathetic ear. That night, as Lucy poured out her fears and doubts, something shifted between her and Asha. The line between comfort and desire blurred. And in a moment of weakness, they shared a kiss that would set in motion a chain of events leading to tragedy. The next morning, racked with guilt but unable to deny the passion she felt, Lucy made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. She convinced herself that what Finn didn't know wouldn't hurt him, and that she could have one last taste of excitement before settling into married life. Little did she know that her carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around her. The affair between Lucy Stevens and Asha Calloway began like a spark and dry tinder, quickly consuming all reason and caution. What started as stolen glances and lingering touches soon escalated into clandestine meetings and passionate encounters. Their first rendezvous occurred under the guise of wedding planning. Lucy had asked Asha to help her choose a surprise gift for Finn, knowing full well that her intentions were far from innocent. They met at an upscale hotel bar, the kind of place where discretion was guaranteed and questions were never asked. As they sat close together, heads bent over a catalogue of watches, the electricity between them was palpable. Asha's hand brushed against Lucy's, and in that moment all pretense fell away. Without a word, they made their way to a room Asha had reserved just in case. The guilt came later, as Lucy lay in bed next to an unsuspecting Finn. She told herself it was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness that would never be repeated. But the thrill of the forbidden proved too intoxicating to resist. Asha and Lucy developed an elaborate system of coded messages and alibis. A text about flower arrangements meant a meeting at their hotel. A call about suit-fitting signal to rendezvous at Asha's apartment. They became experts at stealing moments together, a quick tryst in Lucy's office, a passionate encounter in Asha's car parked in a secluded spot. The risk of discovery only added to the excitement. There were close calls that left them breathless with fear and exhilaration. Once, Finn nearly walked in on them at a family dinner, where Asha and Lucy had snuck away to the coat closet for a heated embrace. Another time, a friend of Lucy spotted them holding hands in a cafe across town, forcing them to concoct an elaborate lie about discussing surprise party plans for Finn. As the wedding day drew nearer, the intensity of their affair increased. Lucy found herself comparing Finn to Asha, always finding her fiancé wanting. Asha was spontaneous where Finn was predictable, dangerous where Finn was safe. She began to question everything about her relationship and the life she had planned. Asha, for his part, found himself falling deeper than he ever intended. What had started as a conquest, another notch in his belt, had become something more. He began to imagine a future with Lucy, one where they could be together openly. The fact that this future would come at the expense of his cousin's happiness was a detail he conveniently ignored. In quieter moments, both Lucy and Asha were plagued by guilt. They knew the pain their actions would cause if discovered, the lives they would destroy, but in the heat of passion, these concerns always faded away, overshadowed by the intensity of their desire. As the weeks passed, their ability to separate fantasy from reality began to blur. They made promises to each other that they knew they couldn't keep, spoke of a love that was doomed from the start, and all the while, the date of Lucy and Finn's wedding loomed ever closer, a ticking time bomb neither of them knew how to defuse. Finn Calloway had always prided himself on his intuition, his ability to read people and situations. It was a skill that had served him well in his conservation work, allowing him to navigate complex negotiations and delicate ecosystems, but when it came to the betrayal brewing right under his nose, Finn found himself uncharacteristically blind. The first hints of trouble were subtle, easily dismissed. Lucy's sudden obsession with her phone, the way she would quickly end calls when Finn entered the room. Her increased irritability, which she blamed on wedding stress. The lingering scent of unfamiliar cologne that she attributed to a new coworker at the gallery. It was Asha's behavior that finally triggered Finn's suspicions. His cousin, usually so eager to be involved in their lives, began to make excuses to avoid family gatherings. When he did attend, there was a nervous energy about him, a guilty look that flashed across his face whenever he glanced at Lucy. Finn tried to shake off his doubts, telling himself he was being paranoid. But the nagging feeling persisted. Growing stronger with each passing day, he began to pay closer attention. Noting the way Lucy and Asha seemed to communicate without words, the inside jokes that excluded him. Unable to confront his fears directly, Finn embarked on an amateur investigation. He found himself doing things he never thought he would. Checking Lucy's phone when she was in the shower, scanning credit card statements for unexplained charges, even driving by Asha's apartment at odd hours to see if Lucy's car was parked outside. Each new piece of evidence felt like a knife twisting in Finn's gut. A receipt for 2 glasses of champagne at a hotel bar on a night Lucy claimed to be working late, a text message from Asha that simply read, "Missing you quickly." Deleted from Lucy's phone, a lipstick smudge on Asha's collar at a family dinner that matched the shade Lucy wore. As the wedding day drew closer, Finn found himself trapped in a spiral of suspicion and denial. He wanted desperately to believe in Lucy's love, to trust in the future they had planned together, but the evidence was becoming harder to ignore, and the weight of his doubts was crushing him. Finn's internal struggle began to manifest in his behavior. He became distant and distracted, often losing the thread of conversations. His work, once his passion, now felt meaningless in the face of his personal turmoil. Friends and family noticed the change, attributing it to pre-wedding jitters. Unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface, 2 weeks before their wedding, Finn's suspicions reached a boiling point. He decided to confront Lucy, hoping for an innocent explanation for the troubling behavior he had observed in their shared apartment. Finn initiated a serious conversation with Lucy, who was in the midst of finalizing wedding preparations. He directly questioned her about her relationship with his cousin Asha, his voice barely concealing his emotional turmoil. Lucy responded with practiced composure, feigning innocence and dismissing Finn's concerns. However, Finn noticed subtle signs of her discomfort as he presented his evidence. Secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, and guilty looks. Despite Lucy's denials, Finn persisted, detailing specific incidents that had aroused his suspicions. Lucy's responses became more elaborate and defensive, insisting that Finn was overreacting due to wedding stress. She emphasized her love for him and questioned why she would jeopardize their relationship. As the confrontation intensified, Lucy suggested calling Asha to corroborate her stories. Finn observed her nervousness as she dialed and put the call on speaker. Asha's voice filled the room, smoothly backing up Lucy's claims and providing alibis for every suspicious incident Finn mentioned. The united front presented by Lucy and Asha left Finn feeling drained and defeated. Their seamless coordination in denying His accusations only deepened his fears and suspicions. By the end of the conversation, Lucy attempted to reconcile, attributing Finn's concerns to wedding-related stress. She urged him to focus on their upcoming nuptials. Finn, unable to articulate his feelings, merely nodded in response. As he looked into Lucy's eyes, Finn realized that everything had changed. The trust that once formed the foundation of their relationship had been irreparably damaged. And with it, the future he had envisioned began to crumble. The morning of the wedding dawned. Bright and clear, a perfect day for a celebration of love. But within the luxurious bridal suite of the Rosewood Hills estate, the atmosphere was anything but joyous. Lucy sat at the ornate vanity, surrounded by her bridesmaids as they fussed over her hair and makeup. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and drawn, despite the artfully applied cosmetics. The weight of her deception pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe in her intricately beaded gown. Across the estate, in a smaller room designated for the groom's party, Finn stood motionless as his best man adjusted his bow tie. His face was a mask of calm, betraying none of the turmoil raging within. The decision he had made in the dark hours of the morning felt both terrifying and inevitable. Asha arrived late, slipping into the room with an apologetic smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Finn watched his cousin in the mirror, noting the nervous energy that radiated from him. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Asha quickly looked away, unable to hold Finn's steady gaze. As the hours ticked by and the ceremony drew nearer, the tension in both rooms continued to build. Lucy found herself fighting back tears, ruining her carefully applied mascara. Finn's hands shook as he slipped his grandmother's watch onto his wrist. A family heirloom he had once imagined passing down to his and Lucy's son. Outside, blissfully unaware guests began to arrive, filling the air with excited chatter and laughter. The string quartet started to play. The gentle melodies, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos unfolding behind closed doors. As the wedding planner's voice came through the door, announcing it was time to take their places, three hearts raised with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived. The grand ballroom of Rosewood Hills had been transformed into a floral wonderland. Garlands of white roses and delicate baby's breath adorned every surface. Their sweet scent filling the air, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow over the assembled guests. As the music swelled, all eyes turned to the back of the room. Finn stood at the altar, his face an unreadable mask as he watched the bridal party make their way down the aisle. Asha, standing beside him as best man, shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between Finn and the entrance. Then the bridal march began, and Lucy appeared in the doorway. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. She was a vision in white, her gown a masterpiece of lace and silk that seemed to float around hers. She moved, but those closest to her could see the strain in her smile, the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her bouquet, as Lucy glided down the aisle on her father's arm. Her eyes locked with Finn's. In that moment, a silent communication passed between them. Finn saw the fear and guilt in Lucy's gaze, while she recognized the coldness in his eyes that made her blood run cold. The ceremony began, the officiant words washing over the couple without really registering. Lucy's responses were automatic, her voice barely above a whisper. Finn's were clear and strong, but lacking the warmth and love one would expect on such an occasion. As they reached the exchange of vows, a palpable tension filled the room. Guests shifted in their seats, picking up on the undercurrent of unease emanating from the couple. Asha stood rigid, his face a shade paler than usual, as if sensing the impending disaster. Finn, the officiant said, "You may now recite your vows to Lucy." Finn took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the crowd before settling back on Lucy. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady, carrying to every corner of the hushed room. Lucy, I stand here today not to recite vows of love and fidelity, but to speak a truth that can no longer be ignored. His words sent a ripple of confusion through the guests. Lucy's eyes widened in horror as she realized what was about to happen. For weeks I've suspected that the woman I thought I knew, the woman I was prepared to spend my life with, has been living a lie. Finn's voice grew stronger, fueled by the pain and anger he had been holding back. And not just any lie, but one that cut to the very heart of trust and family. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as Finn continued, his gaze now shifting to Asha, who had gone deathly pale. Lucy, you've been having an affair with my cousin. The man I asked to stand beside me as my best man. The silence that followed was deafening. Lucy stood frozen, her bouquet slipping from her fingers to land with a soft thud on the floor. Asha took a step back as if trying to distance himself from Finn's accusations. I have proof, Finn said, his voice breaking slightly, emails, text messages, hotel receipts. While we planned our future, you two were sneaking around. But train not just me but everyone here who came to celebrate our love. The room erupted into chaos. Lucy's mother let out a wail of distress, while her father stood up, his face purpled with rage. Finn's parents sat in shocked silence, their eyes darting between their son and their nephew. In the aftermath of Finn's revelation, Lucy found her voice amidst the chaos. She pleaded with Finn, attempting to explain the situation, insisting that his understanding was incorrect. However, Finn had reached his breaking point and was no longer receptive to her words, turning to address the bewildered guest. Finn apologized for the false pretenses under which they had gathered. He announced the cancellation of the wedding, his words echoing through the stunned silence of the venue. With this declaration, he stepped down from the altar and began his solitary walk back down the aisle. As Finn passed Asha, he paused briefly, in a voice laden with hurt and betrayal. He expressed his deep disappointment, emphasizing the brotherly bond he had once believed they shared. The assembled guests watched in shocked silence as Finn made his way towards the exit. However, before he could reach the doors, a commotion near the altar redirected everyone's attention. All eyes turned back to where Lucy and Asha stood, as a new drama began to unfold at the focal point of what was supposed to be a joyous celebration. In the midst of the shocked murmurs and confused exclamations, Asha's hand moved to the inside of his jacket. Time seemed to slow as he pulled out a small gleaming object, a concealed handgun. As the situation escalated, Lucy was the first to notice the dangerous turn of events. She cried out Asha's name in alarm, her mascara-stained face contorted with fear. Her scream cut through the chaos, drawing everyone's attention. The assembled guests turned to see Asha, raising a gun, his hand visibly shaking. Finn, alerted by Lucy's cry, turned back to face this new threat. His expression, one of utter disbelief at the sight of his armed cousin, panic, immediately erupted in the venue. Guests scrambled for safety, some hiding behind chairs while others rushed for the exits. The string quartet abandoned their instruments, which clattered to the ground as the musicians fled. Despite the chaos, Finn maintained a surprising calm, addressing Asha in a steady voice. He attempted to reason with his cousin, urging him to reconsider his actions and lower the weapon. However, Asha appeared beyond rational thought, his eyes wild and unfocused, as he ranted about ruined plans and lost happiness. Lucy, her wedding gown now disheveled, cautiously approached Asha. She pleaded with him, her voice shaking, trying to convince him that violence wasn't the solution. For a brief moment, it seemed her words might reach him. But Asha's resolve quickly hardened once more. The tension reached its breaking point, as Asha declared there was no turning back. In a blur of motion, he tightened his grip on the trigger. Lucy lunged forward in an attempt to disarm him, while Finn sprinted towards them in a desperate bid to protect Lucy. The scene culminated in a heart-stopping moment as the deafening sound of a gunshot reverberated through the ballroom, leaving everyone in shock and uncertainty about who, if anyone, had been hit. The gunshot's echo lingered in the air, followed by a brief chilling silence. Then, as if released from a spell, the scene erupted into chaos once more. Lucy collapsed to the ground, her pristine white wedding gown quickly staining with an alarming spread of crimson. Finn rushed to her side, all previous anger forgotten in the face of this horrific turn of events. He cradled her in his arms, the gravity of the situation overwhelming him. Meanwhile, Asher stood frozen in shock, the weapon slipping from his grasp and clattering to the floor. His expression was one of stunned disbelief, as if he was unable to process the consequences of his actions. Finn desperately tried to stem the flow of blood from Lucy's chest wound, his voice breaking as he pleaded with her to stay conscious. His earlier feelings of betrayal were now replaced by a frantic desire to save her life. Lucy struggled to focus on Finn, her eyes fluttering open with great effort, and a barely audible whisper she attempted to apologize. Her words interrupted by a cough that brought a trickle of blood to her lips. The gravity of her condition became painfully clear as she fought to express her regret, leaving the air heavy with unspoken words and the uncertainty of her fate. Around them, the scene was one of pandemonium. Guests who had medical training rushed forward to help, while others called emergency services. Asher remained rooted to the spot, unresisting as Finn's father and another guest restrained him. The wait for the ambulance felt interminable. Finn held Lucy, whispering words of encouragement and forgiveness, trying to keep her conscious. But with each passing minute, her responses grew weaker, her breathing more labored. By the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. Despite their best efforts, Lucy Stevens was pronounced dead at the scene, her life cut short in the very place where she was supposed to begin a new chapter. As the police arrived and began to take control of the situation, the full weight of the tragedy settled over Rosewood Hills, which should have been a day of joy and celebration, had become a nightmare that would haunt all present for years to come. In the months that followed the tragic events at Rosewood Hills, the lives of all involved were irrevocably changed. Asher Calloway was charged with second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. His once bright future extinguished by a moment of jealous rage. Finn Calloway, grappling with grief and guilt, left his job in the country seeking solace in the remote wilderness areas he had once fought to protect.